Hi, this is Ren,
This is Casey.
and this is All Walks of Film. So, do you like people?
I don't like people at all. Pretty much fucking hate people.
But do you like to eat people?
Oh, definitely. People are fucking tasty, man. People are delicious.
So, we just watched The Bad Batch, which is the second film from Iranian director Anna Lily Armapur, who first did A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which I meant to see, but I didn't see.
Good going. I literally did the same thing.
Yeah, but, after this, I will definitely check it out. It is on Netflix, so if you're interested in watching it too, it's there. You don't have to spend any money to watch that movie. Oh, she's done a couple other films, but they're all shorts. So this is her second film. So this is the first post-apocalyptic film I think I've seen directed by a woman, which...
Finally. Actually, it's not. I mean, I know mine was a short, but you at least saw it first. God damn.
Okay, but that came out after...
No, it didn't.
Well, it was made after.
It was made after, but it came out first.
But, yeah, this definitely feels a little bit rougher, nastier than usually what you expect from women directors. I'm not trying to say that women directors...
Excuse you? Excuse you.
Is this another Babadook reference?
No, it's not a Babadook reference. It's the Voices reference.
Well, yeah, and she was also an Iranian director.
Yeah, but it's not saying, oh, only Iranian directors can do this kind of, gnarly-ass stuff. Female directors do gnarly-ass stuff.
Yes, but that's normally
Who is one of your favorite production designers of all time? Do you need a little reminder there?
Carol Spear. Yeah, no, there are plenty of women working in Hollywood that, have a little bit of edge to them. And what are you giving me that look for?
Cronenberg would not be where he was if it wasn't for fucking Carol Spear, and you know it. Not a little bit of edge. Women who have their own voices in a darker, more gnarly side of entertainment.
Well, yeah, and then you have people like Sofia Coppola.
God. Fuck Sofia Coppola. No.
But there are a lot of female directors that, while they might make interesting films, their films don't. Alright, so The Bad Batch is a cannibal road movie.
Yeah, like a grindhouse film.
Yeah, this movie kind of embraces its grindhouse, but for a movie that has a lot of edge to it, it's not really action-packed. They're just like a couple scenes of intense cannibalism.
I mean, yeah, one of the things that does make it like a very feminine movie, I would say, is the fact that, how did the world get to be this way? How does the system function? How did they end up there? What's this character's backstory? What's this character's backstory? You don't know anything in this movie. It's hard to pitch this movie from any perspective of, plot or character development. It's more of a movie that's a series of really well-made moments, which in cinema is a very feminine trait.
Explain.
A lot of female creative minds are more interested in showing you moments in life versus having a lot of exposition and explaining why things are the way they are. A lot of times they know in their heads, this is why everything is the way it is, but they don't like telling the audience this kind of stuff.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of women don't make it for a long period of time, because let's face it, Hollywood likes movies with plot, and they like movies that move forward, and everything is moving forward, and this plot, and this plot, and this plot.
Yeah, one of the things I think is really feminine in this movie is that there's very little that's spoken. And a lot of people are like, oh, movies that aren't spoken, you mean Fury Road? And it's dude, that's one fucking example.
But if Fury Road didn't exist, this movie wouldn't exist. There are obvious references to it.
I mean, Keanu Reeves is a Morton Joe. There's like almost no difference between them. I'm sorry. That might seem like a big spoiler, but it's really not. It's almost not even in the movie. And it's not even really the reason why he's in the movie. So it's not really spoiling anything.
Also, Arian is a lot like Furiosa. I mean, you only have...
Arlene, yeah.
Oh.
That's an L. It's Arlene.
Arlene. Sorry, I'm terrible with names in movies.
As you know from watching me talk about Fury Road, I've got a thing for nailing down names. Don't fucking dispute me on this. I'm looking right at you, IMDb, with your stupid honey thing. Her name is Miel? Miel? Yeah. Her name's fucking Miel. It's not Honey.
Also, I thought Jason Momoa's character actually had a name in the movie.
I
He's
don't think
referred to in IMDb as Miami Man.
Which I bet is not actually his name. That's more than a little bit ridiculous. But part of the reason why I know for a fact that the little girl's name is Miel is because he has her name tattooed on his fucking clavicle, and then he calls her Miel. As far as I know, that's not a pronoun.
Was that the name that Keanu Reeves gave her?
No.
Honey.
Honey? Oh. Doesn't matter if it is. It's still stupid.
Yeah. So, in the very beginning of this movie, the girl's arm gets chopped off, and her leg gets chopped off, and then those items get thrown on the grill, and she's just kind of there. And she's trying to figure out what to do with her life, and she eventually, like, gets out after covering herself with shit to taint the meat, and she manages to get out when the person tries to wash her. And then she's just kind of trying to figure out what to do in life, which is very much what this movie kind of is about.
Yeah, I mean, like, the whole Bad Batch thing, well, everyone you see is a member of the Bad Batch, but what does that mean? Well, like, the movie vaguely says, but, like, doesn't really get into, oh, how do they determine who fits into the Bad Batch? How did she end up in the Bad Batch? What is the process that people in the Bad Batch undergo before ending up in this wasteland that's somewhere between the United States and Mexico that doesn't exist in real life?
Well, I think this is another example of a film that's talking about Trump's wall without actually explicitly saying there's a wall and et cetera, because looking at some of the imagery and knowing that that was something that was said, it's possible that that could have been an influence. But, you know, border walls have been themes in films for a while. And
yeah, I mean, what was the original border wall?
The Walls of Jericho?
Okay, yeah, but I mean in a more literal sense. It's kind of a particularly great one.
Oh, the Great Wall of China?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people kind of like to ignore that part, but yeah, that was a fucking border wall.
Wait, is the Great Wall of No, the Great Wall of China is newer than the Walls of Jericho in the
But it's
story.
Yeah, but that's a story. Do we still have the Walls of Jericho?
No, because they fell down. That's part of the story.
Yeah, I know.
But this film is rather plotless. I mean, yeah, they're trying to find Miel, but things just sort of
That doesn't really happen until, like, a little ways after the halfway mark.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those
That's not really the
where...
important part.
Right, yeah.
Like, Miel isn't really a person. She's just more of a MacGuffin.
Right. It's kind of like A Boy and His Dog, but...
In more ways than one.
Right, but... you know, less objectifying, because, like, all blood and...
I don't know, you made a few choice comments about the female gaze in this movie.
Oh, there is a ton of female gaze. Like, if you want to look at hot guys, particularly if Jason Momoa is your type, this is the movie for you.
I don't know, I kind of only thought Jason Momoa looked cute when he was painting with his little glasses on, looking like real studious. This does not particularly engage my feminine gaze, let's put it that way. Particularly as a bisexual viewer.
But yeah, this movie is kind of like hard to like really describe just because of its lack of plot. Like there, you know, like you said, there are interesting moments in the film, but there's really not much to like give away about this movie. It's pretty predictable, and
I mean, I don't know if it's really predictable. It's really meandering. I didn't really expect a lot of the movie to go where it went. For example, this is a movie that has one of the very few supposedly, to put it very loosely, love stories that I thought actually worked in a movie and wasn't stupid and shoehorned for no reason.
Yeah, my only frustration with this movie is it brings up a lot of interesting ideas, but I kind of wish the movie was a little bit tighter, fleshed out people a little bit more. I mean, everything's like really vague.
But I also appreciate that the movie really focused more on the you learn about a person through their action, not through their words sort of philosophy that post-apocalyptic stories have always had.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, just like any very excellent post-apocalyptic story, the production design was super tight, on point in all aspects, and tells you a lot about the story without expositionally explaining yada yada yada. I mean, she didn't really need to talk for most of the movie, so she didn't. He didn't really need to talk for most of the movie, so we didn't. There's not really a lot of point in talking in this sort of world or in this sort of story. It's not really the point. So I get why there's not a lot of that in it. Especially when the movie is based mostly on people's distrust of each other.
Right, but one of the things that I thought was interesting about the movie was there were moments that felt tense, but there were also moments where I didn't feel one way or another. And
I disagree. I think that there were a lot of moments that were tense and a lot of moments that were really, like, I'm not gonna say for me they were particularly hard to watch because I'm more of a, hardened, hardcore kind of a viewer, but I could see for a lot of people it could be harder. But then it was balanced off with a lot of lighter moments that weren't obnoxious comic relief. And we're not really used to seeing that in movies. We're used to it either being like super downer all the way through or having obnoxious comic relief that you fucking hate and wish wasn't there. Yeah, it was nice that a lot of the lighter moments still fit the tone without being ridiculous.
Yeah, this film is actually pretty funny. It's kind of got a goofy, dark edge to it.
Yeah, and I really like that in this movie. You don't see that a lot in movies in general.
I personally wish the movie had something resembling a score instead of just using music.
I agree. The soundtrack was really good and fit the movie really well, but anytime a movie only works with a soundtrack, it tends to feel a little weak.
Yeah, because oftentimes character moments are enhanced by the music that's given, and this movie could have been elevated by actually having a score in some of the scenes.
Like in Fury Road, when a lot of... We're not going to have the characters talk about what they're feeling, we're not going to have a lot of exposition, but in moments where we can't convey visually what's going on, we'll have the score step in. So, for example, there's that really great scene in the valley where Furiosa is trying to deal with the mountain dwellers, and the score is emulating her heartbeat because of her nervousness. Really beautiful things like that. Or there's a particular riff that happens every time Nux, quote unquote, sees Valhalla. He talks about the gates being open to him 3 times, and the first time you see the movie, if you're not really, really paying attention, I get why you might be like, what the fuck does that mean? But every time that score kicks in, that's a time when the gates are opening to him, but they can't visually put it in the movie, so they put it in the score. And I think that there are a lot of moments in this movie that could have made their character a lot more fleshed out and built up without the let's sit around and talk about ourselves kind of bullshit.
Yeah, the one complaint that I will have about the movie is at the very beginning when she gets her arm and leg cut off, it didn't really seem to bother her. And the fact that she's not crying or surprised, disoriented, like any of that. Just that's weak sauce.
It's not weak sauce. It builds up her character in an interesting way, but it sucks that we don't really know why. Like, it kind of comes around full circle a little bit later when you see Miami Man with a girl in her same position. And she's upset, she's afraid for her life, she's begging for her life, she doesn't want her limbs cut off, all this stuff. And it's more of the reaction you expect Arlene to have, but they don't explain why she's not surprised or why she was kind of more mentally prepared for that or why she wasn't particularly upset or distraught in that sort of a situation.
Right.
Like, what was she in the fucking Girl Scouts? Like, why was she prepared for that as a possibility? I mean, she was medicated. Most likely this other girl wasn't, but that doesn't solve everything. You're still gonna have shock and phantom pains. You're still gonna be upset. And it's not that she never expresses upsetness about it. Every time her leg becomes in jeopardy, she does become very distraught and upset. That's something she's very afraid of losing again. She doesn't know how to deal without having her prosthetic, which was a really interesting way of developing her character, but it is kind of frustrating to have this protagonist that you know nothing about. Like, for example, in Fury Road or in Road Warrior, you have another character you know some stuff about. So even though the main character is more shrouded in mystery, somewhat-ish, you have somebody else who's picking up a lot of the slack and bringing in storytelling aspects.
Right. It's one thing to be vague with, like, one character, I'm just gonna dub her the man with no name type.
She was.
Yeah, carrying on the Western tradition of the quiet hero that comes in and saves the day and then leaves, or sometimes they integrate with society. Oftentimes they don't.
They attempt to, and it doesn't work, and they have their romantic / tragic ending.
Right. So this movie flirts with that idea, but it doesn't really go there. And quite frankly,
I actually really liked the ending.
Yeah.
In that particular way, where it did have this very stereotypical, I'm the hardened hero and nothing really hurts me and I'm gonna lose my arm and my leg and I'm gonna be fine and I'm gonna be in control of myself and nobody's really gonna hurt me because I'm invulnerable, which I think was really played up by the fact that in this movie, like, her sexuality isn't even an aspect. Like, rape is never a problem for a very beautiful woman in this sort of scenario. And I think that it's partly dealing with her natural invulnerability of, like, the Western cowboy.
Yeah, it's also weird because, like, in post-apocalyptic stories that usually is pretty prominent. Like, you look at the original Mad Max movie, there's a lot of rape. You look at the
Fury Road movie, of course.
The Fury Road one, it's obviously there, but you don't see it.
But it's the main proponent of the plot.
Right. Then you have A Boy and His Dog, which the main character is a rapist.
Right.
And yeah, in this movie, it's rather sexless, which is kind of interesting for a post-apocalyptic story.
But it does make sense when you take that character archetype and you put it in a female perspective. Part of the fact that it is sort of a rapeless society is her own personal invulnerability, because it's not like all the women in this world don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I said, there isn't a Morton Joe character who's running around and fertilizing all these women. Probably not always to their will. In this sort of Amish mind-washing sort of a way.
Yeah, I mean...
And by Amish, that's a joke. It's a Portland, India episode. It's not... I'm not really saying something bad about Amish people. I'm sorry.
But there does seem to be this thing that he has where he's kind of indoctrinating these women.
Oh, for sure. Don't you want to grow the seed and bring life and be part of the solution? Yeah, for sure. But then that's something that she never buys into even for a minute. It's something she plays against. She's still ultimately the person in control, even in that situation.
Yeah, he's also the person that controls the water, like a Morton Joe.
Right, exactly. He has the only food, the only gardens like a Morton Joe. He has all the women he's impregnating like a Morton Joe. But with her character in particular, the way that this sort of role reverses is not that she can't assimilate with society, and not that she can assimilate with society, but that she creates her own comfortable society. Kinda, sorta. The movie makes it a little bit vague. But yeah, and that's a really interesting triple take on that archetype.
Yeah, this movie is so vague that
I give it like A minus B plus, sort of an area. I think it's really interesting. I have a particular fondness to it because it plays a lot of homages to other post-apocalyptic movies I really enjoy while doing something a little bit different with it. And to be fair, I haven't really met a post-apocalyptic movie I don't like. Yeah, I can't really say. Oh, Waterworld.
Yeah,
Whoops. I kind of just like pretend that doesn't exist.
Mad Max ripoff on water.
To be fair, Waterworld's a good concept.
Yeah, it's a really good concept. It also has some really impressive action moments.
Yeah, a lot of the action moments are really good. A lot of the set pieces are really good. And I think a lot of the world building is fantastic. It's just everything with character and plot just... Oh, God. Anyway, besides that one, I pretty much like all of them.
So, I would give the movie a B plus, B minus. And the reason why I would is because the movie teases at being something a little bit more action-packed, being something a little bit...
But all the action is really realistic, and that's really refreshing to see. Everything in it is more of a realistic take on what could actually happen. As fantastic as everything in Mad Max is, a lot of that action is fucking fantasy, which works for that movie, but in this movie, the more realistic, fucked up, withdrawn, literally everyone is terrified of everyone sort of scenario is something we don't see a lot in movies, and I think was really awesome to see in this particular one. I think they made it work really well.
But the style of the movie, the cinematic style, the use of color, etc.,
all of which I was a fan of,
leads me to feeling that this movie needed to be more energetic, needed to be more fun than what it was.
I mean, that's your opinion. I don't really agree with it. I think a lot of it works the way it works. There was never a point where I was bored or annoyed or just like, dude, can we move on? So in that particular respect, the lack of action or the vagueness of the plot, I mean, it's there, but it's not really a problem to me.
I just think that the movie is trying to emulate visually like Mad Max and all that kind of stuff, but like it's more along the lines of like Hour of the Wolf or
The Road
and stuff like that.
The Road's a great fucking movie.
But like, look at the color palette. Look at like other stuff. So like, it's just
I don't like the color palette in The Road for that movie. I don't think it works. I think this color palette works perfectly. In fact, I think it's a better color palette than Mad Max.
I won't go there.
Okay, the color palette in Mad Max works for what it is, but they only basically use like 4 colors in the whole movie. I'm always really relieved to see a post-apocalyptic movie where, guess what, there's a blue sky. Guess what, there's artificial colors. Guess what, everything kind of looks like crap, but not in like a really bland, dull way, but in sort of like an obnoxious eyesore kind of way, because that's what the garbage of our society looks like. I thought that it worked fantastically for what it was.
I guess it depends on where you live and where you grow up.
I mean, maybe, but like when you look at... Okay, let me give you an example. When you go to a thrift store, when you do like the Macklemore thing and you go to a Savers or whatever, what kind of colors do you see?
Reds, blues...
You see a prism of color. It's all neon, or it's all eyesore patterns that nobody likes, or there's a particular thrift store that used to be near us where they arranged everything by color, and it was a fucking rainbow.
Well,
that's what trash looks like. It looks multicolored. It's not just a couple different colors in this sort of concrete mush sort of a look. That's not really what devastated nature looks like. That's not really what a landfill looks like. That's not really what, like, garbage society looks like. That's not really what, like, for example, this movie was really trying to emulate a trailer park looks like.
I get what you're saying, but, like, from what I've seen with, like, trailer parks and all that kind of stuff, and this might be a north-south difference. I'm aware of that, but I'm used to more muted colors. I'm used to rotting plants, and which with the costume design you saw with a lot of characters, but right. Like with their environment, they didn't really blend in with their environment. Like the environment was like really nice, and you know
what, their environment was nice
color wise. Like, they polished that turd really nicely in this movie.
I don't think so. When you see her on the skateboard with her foot and her hand on the ground, you saw me. I was just like, oh god, ouch,
yeah,
that
but
must
you're talking
suck.
about the plot. I'm literally
no, I'm not
talking about
the plot.
colors.
I'm saying that looked like it hurt.
Yeah,
that
but I'm talking
like
about how it's filmed. I'm not talking about the context of the story.
With, like, the blindingness of the sand, you didn't get this impression that everything underneath her bare feet was hot? That's what a desert looks like. That's what scalding hot environments look like. It's crystal blue skies. And it's blindingly bright ground. It's hard to look at because it's so colorful. That's what it looks like.
Well, then push it cinematically. Show that more.
I thought that they did. I thought that the cinematography and the production design really pushed those too hot to touch kind of compositions and color palettes really well.
I
was scared for her when she got in that car. I thought she was gonna burn herself.
Okay. I didn't get the feeling of hot. But here's a reason. You don't really see characters sweat in this movie, which you could make the argument that it's so hot that they're not sweating.
No, you couldn't. I don't think so.
But
that's a good point. They definitely could have had a little spritzer there and made them look a lot more sweaty, for sure. I don't disagree with that. They did a really good job.
Outside of the trash, it looked nice. It looked really nice.
I don't know. None of that looked particularly nice to me.
No. I'm talking about. I'm talking about the colors and how it is outside. I'm not talking about the environment itself. Because, yeah, the production design set it up. I'm literally talking about how they chose to do color correction in this movie and how it's presented.
I don't know. Everything looked, like, hot and smelly to me.
Okay.
And I know, like, the sweat kind of sucked, but they did a really good job with a lot of other aspects, like giving everybody, like, really shitty, greasy hair. Or, like, her eyeshadow, or her eyeliner, eyebrow, you know, her eyeliner pencil thing was smudging all the time because of the heat, you know.
They could have made her look a little dirtier.
Oh, I don't disagree, but I also like how much they did downplay her. Like, one of the things they talked about in 10 Cloverfield Lane was how much I hated her fucking beautiful lingerie push-up bra that made her boobs look fantastic and peeked out of her undershirt in just the right way to make her look really sexually appealing, whereas this character was wearing a bra in a shitty way. It was a crappy bra that made her boobs look saggy and point in a weird fucking direction, and you could see the straps, and it just made her look kind of shitty in a good way. Now, like, I think that the actress actually has saggy tits. I'm just saying that, like, that was a really good use of costuming. I liked a lot of the costuming, a lot of the, like, really playfulness with this garbage culture of, like, her fucking winky shorts that you know she's only wearing because somebody threw that away, because no one would really wear that shit. I liked that.
But to me, I feel that if you're going to have those elements, you need to play them up more. Like,
I don't know, you put Jason Momoa in the most, like, unflattering, disgusting pants I could possibly think of.
But it's
oh god.
I personally wish that, you know, the world was just a little bit more fun, that there was, and by fun, I don't mean like fun, I mean like fun visually, cinematically.
I don't know, there was a lot of flies, there were a lot of crows, fucking eating people. The main chick did cover herself in feces, you gotta give her that. That makes her look pretty damn ugly. Everybody is wearing horrible clothes. Most of the human beings literally look like they're dressed in garbage.
But I mean, like, in the movie goes, like, back and forth with, like, the threat of people. Because, like, this movie doesn't really have raiders. This movie doesn't really have,
yeah, like, there's an idea of a society, you know.
Yeah, there are times where she's walking around, and even though cannibalism is going on, like, there are times where you just kind of, like, forget that that's, like, a thing.
I don't know, I really like the butchering scene.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was
fantastic. I'm talking about with the main character. Like, there are times, like, when she's, like, trying to ask for that, like, little girl and stuff like that. I was kind of surprised that, like, she wasn't being, like, eyed up and down, you know, as food.
I agree. There were a couple times that she was being threatened for her meat. Like, I'll trade you this gas for that leg. They were talking about her real leg. They weren't talking about her prosthetic leg. Right,
but the movie goes back and forth with it. Like, sometimes the society feels a little too safe and it feels weird.
Well, that's because not everybody's a cannibal.
Yeah, but you would still posture yourself because anybody could flip and try to take you.
I mean, yeah, but it is kind of a world-building thing where, like, she lives in Comfort, which is a place where they have a lot of the supposed niceties of this world and where a lot of people aren't cannibals. And then there's kind of the rest of the world that's not really like that.
I'm saying it's inconsistent.
It's not consistent, it's just not defined in a very specifically spoken way. There's no exposition saying, like, oh, there's the Comfort and then there's everything else. That's just something you sort of have to figure out as the movie goes along. You know, part of the reason she looks so nice is because she's part of the Comfort, you know? It's because she has a place where she has electricity, she has access to basic makeup, she has a toilet that she can flush her shit down. That's actually a plot point in the movie, is where does she shit? She probably can take a shower every once in a while. Yeah, she would look a lot nicer than a lot of the other people. But then a lot of things aren't explained, like how did she end up at the Comfort? Why isn't everybody there? Do they have some sort of VIP selection process? You know, is there some seedy underside to that besides the, like, Immortan Joe pregnant lady's brothel thing that detracts people from that? And apparently there is some sort of, like, teamwork built into that. Like, she essentially gets rescued by some other dude at the Comfort just because she lives there. No, let's trade for resources. No, we want to rape you. No, we want to eat your leg. It's nothing like that. They're all subsisting on bunnies somehow. And noodles. Where are they getting these bunnies and noodles? I don't fucking know. That's one of the weird things in the movie is, like, you can't just dig Chinese takeout noodles out of the garbage for forever and expect that to feed everyone and be fine.
I guess they just had, like, a stockpile of, like, ramen or whatever.
But it was weird. Like, how would you do that? Where did that come from? Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's just not explained in any form. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would say that as far as, like, world building, like, this movie needed some work.
There's just a lot there that we don't really see, but yeah.
Post-apocalyptic movies, even ones that I would consider worse than this one, that have better world building. The world building in this movie is not a strength of this movie.
I don't disagree. I think that someone in the filmmaking process kind of knew what everything was, but it somehow got lost in the film.
Yeah, and at least for me, I think the production design team and the director didn't necessarily see eye to eye on tone, because the production design seems a lot more fun and kind of, like, weird. I'm trying to think of an example outside of Mad Max.
I mean, here's what it looks like to me. It looked like a post-apocalyptic version, like a poor version, like poverty-stricken version of Spring Breakers. That's exactly what it looked and felt like.
Yeah, but Spring Breakers is really fun. like there, yes, there are parties in this movie, but like, you know, to me, it's like if you had the character interactions, maybe if you showed a little bit of how people have fun to actually like flesh out characters that are having fun and all that kind of stuff. And maybe incorporating violence into the fun and sex and all this kind of stuff, that all these things that are there in the story, you know, a little bit with pacing and all this kind of stuff, it would just feel more right with the color choices that they're going with.
I think a big part of that problem also feeds into the fact that this movie didn't really seem to be... Like, you mentioned that it's about Trump's wall. I don't really agree with that, other than the fact that it's just in this weird no man's land area between the US and Mexico. I didn't really see any other parallels to it, but I didn't really see a lot of parallels to anything else. I mean, I saw the destruction of society, I saw the, like, impoverishment of people and the way that they live their shitty lives because of their poverty, sort of like, exploration, which is always interesting and the best strength of the movie. And obviously there's symbolism, like we burn money because money doesn't mean anything and all that stuff. But in general, the movie's not an allegory for something. It's not really saying something about something, which is the strength of a lot of post-apocalyptic movies, is they have some sort of meaning or some sort of moral or some sort of like, it means something. And this movie didn't really seem to mean a whole lot. It just seemed to be more of like, I mean this in a very positive way, but it seems to be more of like a romanticized retelling of somebody's childhood in a trailer park, which is what I liked about it. I just think that they might have needed to push that envelope a little bit more in a stronger direction.
But that's what I'm talking about, like, where I think the movie should have been more fun. Like, I think that, like, you should have, like, you haven't seen Smoking Aces, but, like...
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So, kind of like the Nazi gang that they have, like, that's kind of, like, how this world feels to me. Like, you know, like these crazy people that are on 11, they're obviously like strung up on drugs, but like the movie plays that as like kind of like this weird fun experience.
And that was kind of a weird thing in the movie that I kind of like and kind of didn't understand, was the drugs. It was weird because it looked to me a lot like a mental hospital where you have the nurse with her tray with the pills on it, but in this case it was a bunch of people at a rave and a girl with the tray with acid, and she was just giving it away for free. But how does that happen? Where does the acid come from? Why do they give it to everybody who wants it?
Well, I'm guessing that's like what Keanu Reeves' character does to...
But why? Because they were giving it to everybody, not just like fertile women who could give him seed and life or whatever the fuck.
I guess it was to make the people in the society more docile and less hostile.
Kind of like the bonobos with sex?
Well, essentially saying like, hey, let's, instead of you wanting to come after me in my fancy mansion,
I'm going to throw you guys a party so you're not mad at me.
But I'm going to
give
constantly feed you this high so that you feel satisfied. I mean, you saw like at the beginning of the movie where the dudes are working out. That's kind of their drug.
Right, and that makes sense, but that would make a lot more sense if Keanu Reeves was in the movie for more than 2 scenes. He's literally only in 2 scenes of the movie. And he says, like, he's behind the toilets, but that doesn't mean that he's behind everything. You're probably right. I think you're right. It's just...
Well, that
he could have been in the movie more.
Well, that was given to us visually. It wasn't
told
to us. And, like, one of the things that I say often is show, don't tell.
And this movie does that really well for the most part.
But sometimes you need to show a little bit more.
Like, where the fuck do bunnies and noodles come from?
And I think a lot of the reasons why those things aren't in the movie is because of budget. And that sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes becomes an issue with the plot of a story where you don't have the budget to do these things, so a lot of things wind up just not making a lot of sense.
Yeah, like one thing I think would have really worked in in the movie's favor, especially in giving it a sort of more allegorical sense, is if there was some sort of plot point about pack mules crossing the border to like smuggle in product.
Right.
And why that's a necessity and why people want to do that. That could be a much more interesting take on what we see happen in real life all the fucking time. You know, oh, all these fucking drug smugglers are coming into our country to give us drugs. They're all coming in here with crime and they're coming to rape our women and all this stupid bullshit. It could have been a really good way to explain, A, why that happens, and B, that there's a necessity for it. Not just that they're all criminals and druggies and rapists and they're gonna fuck up our whole society or whatever the fuck.
Right.
That could have been really interesting, but they didn't do anything with that.
And I wanted to get on the bunnies because I think the bunnies are stupid. Like, I'm openly gonna say they're stupid because they should have been either desert snakes, lizards, something that doesn't require a lot of water or plants for sustenance, because you can obviously see that there's no vegetation. So what the fuck are they feeding the rabbits? Noodles?
I mean, that is kind of interesting because it's like, where the fuck do the noodles come from anyway? But then where do the rabbits come from? But there's not like there's baby rabbits or somebody grows rabbits. They just have a guy selling rabbits and killing them for meat.
And yes, I know that rabbits fuck a lot, so that they have a lot of offspring, but they still need sustenance to survive.
Well, what I'm saying is if you did have a smuggling option, they could have just been brought there healthy for the sake of being immediately killed. But again, they don't show anything or insinuate anything, so you don't fucking know. I know that might seem really nitpicky, but like, it's not like we have a lot of plot or character development to go off of, so we're kind of stuck with the world stuff.
Yeah, like, why the fuck is this here? Like, also, like, I was kind of excited to see Giovanni Ribisi, because I was like, what's his whole deal?
He did a really good job.
But, like, they don't really go anywhere with his character. Like, I thought he was gonna, like,
do something,
and it was just like, he was just this bumbling, meandering fool.
Which, to be fair, is something people see all the time, but you didn't humanize that.
I mean, I get what they were trying to say, where he has a puzzle, and the puzzle is a flag of the United States, and it's like part...
And he can't put it together because I got a lot of the symbolism with that too. Yeah. That was actually one of the strongest moments in the movie visually, because it's showing that like a lot of people are disenfranchised in a way where they can't make the American dream work for them. And it's not inherently their fault, it's just that the American dream doesn't fucking work. I thought that was something really interesting to only say with like essentially 3 shots. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's cool that you had that in your movie, but you didn't really go anywhere. I mean, they kind of did with the ending, where it's like, it's not the American dream. It's not assimilating to society. It's not what somebody else told her was the dream. Because literally, they're called The Dream. It's all pretty obvious, you know, the dream. You know, and that's just not a desirable end goal for a lot of people. And that was kind of interesting that she sort of made her own deal outside of that.
Yeah, either be a handmaid or hang out with Jason Momoa.
Well, look at America, where we value women specifically for, oh, can you bear children? Well, that's all we care about. You must bear children. We don't really care about your livelihood outside of that. We don't even care about your kids once they're born. We just care about you having kids. So I guess there was, like, some allegory with that, but maybe it's something I just need to think about a little bit more. Because there are a lot of pieces there. I kind of wish that there was more to it, because, like, when you look at Fury Road, you can look at it as being about one issue, but really they're tackling about 10 different issues in a movie. And
right.
But here's the thing, all those issues intersect.
But part of it, I think, is a lack of experience with the director. Not being able to convey.
To be fair, for a second movie, this is very excellent. I'm not saying that the movie's bad by any means.
But I'm saying if you have all these ideas, you need a little bit of focus, you know, because if you're not going to explain things, you know, you need to show enough visually for people to grasp, because, you know, this movie almost requires you to look around every corner to try to piece things together, which...
To be fair, we do have to cut this movie a lot of slack for being an indie film, because indie films are on a much tighter timeline. Not always. A lot of franchise movies are too rushed, but it's not like indie film directors can take 30 years like George Miller did. They can't always take that much time to work out their movies, to work out every flaw. You don't know how much of it was the editor's fault. You don't know how much of it was, oh, they planned all these scenes, but they ran out of budget and couldn't film them. You don't know how much of it was they didn't even think about it to begin with. You don't know how much of it was a producer stepping in and saying, you can't include this because it could hurt our chances at a festival, or it could hurt our ability to be distributed by Amazon Prime. It's one of those things where it's gonna have some weaknesses, and it's hard to point out where they come from. With a lot of franchise movies, we kind of know enough, A, about the system, and B, about the process, because there's always a million stories about what's going on behind the scenes during pre-production and production and all this, all this stuff. But with indie filmmaking, a lot of it's a lot more organic, and a lot of it is going to have weaker spots just because of the way that the indie film structure works.
Yeah, so don't let my criticism of the film say that the movie is terrible, because the movie isn't terrible. It's just, I personally wish the film was more confident in what it was. It felt like it was wading in two different directions, and I feel that it could have been a little bit bolder.
I don't think it was necessarily boldness. I think a lot of it had to do with finesse. I think the movie actually had a lot of confidence. I just think a lot of it is very rough around the edges, not fully explored, and a lot of it is coming from a director who's trying to find her voice at a very early stage in her career. I don't think there's a problem with that. I think that she's going to be doing a lot better stuff in the future. Based off of one movie. I haven't seen her other movie. But I really think she's going to be doing better stuff. I just think that this is, in a sort of Terrence Malick-y way, it's a stepping stone in her path as a filmmaker, and I think that that's completely fine.
Yeah, I definitely
it's not the best of this year, but that's okay. I think that it's probably going to be in my top 10, though. Maybe towards the bottom, but still. It's doing something interesting. It's doing something that's entertaining and intriguing, and it's doing it pretty well. Not phenomenally, but pretty damn well. I think that's okay. I think that there's space in the film world for a movie like this.
I just thought it was okay. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was pretty damn good.
Alright, so that's The Bad Batch. It is currently available on Amazon and iTunes for rental.
Mm-hmm.
And some theaters have it, but it's a very limited release.
Right, but again, this is supporting indie filmmakers in an early stage of a lot of their careers. They got Jason Momoa on it, but a lot of times big name actors are ending up in indie projects for very little pay.
And
it's good to support these
people.
people.
It's nice to have a movie directed by a woman that isn't about infidelity or a romantic comedy.
That's not a bad point. I kind of agree with that. Because even a lot of... That's actually something I point out all the time, is how fed up I am with female directors who keep making movies about how every man around desires them and how they feel the spiritual need to be infidel, to cheat on their significant other. And it is really nice to see a movie where neither one of those is really on the table at all.
Well, that and the fact that a woman's sexual awakening is like the plot of most movies directed by women. And yeah, that's a very important aspect in everyone's life, but it doesn't have to be every fucking movie that comes out.
It's not every movie that comes out, or even every movie directed by women, but right. I agree with you. It's nice to see. It's nice to see another movie like that. Yeah. For sure. And I know it's not free, but you can rent it at home for cheaper than a movie ticket and be giving your money to aspiring filmmakers who needed a lot more than fucking Warner Brothers.
All right, well, thanks for listening.